You know what I think I want to talk about?
What's that, Alex?
The devil.
The devil made me do it.
Yes, he did. He did. He almost did. He did.
Why do the devil make me do it?
And by devil, I mean devil's advocate.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not exactly known in the LGBT community as the most stalwart bulwark, bulwark.
You look like Luke Skywalker. V-neck.
You don't even know what a Luke Skywalker is. You Star Trekky heathen.
Yeah. So what LGBTQRS element of the XYZ plus minus are you going to do?
Well, I'm not exactly a big believer in the whole transgender movement, but I do believe in different ideas, and I do believe that I can put up a rigorous defense for the worldview. And I will do my honest-to-goodness best to fairly represent their arguments.
Mm-hmm.
And you can attack me with everything you've got. Because if I'm transgender, I probably, I lost some things.
Snip, snip, snip.
No. I couldn't resist. I'm sorry. Okay.
You're missing some parts.
Anyway.
Go ahead, take the floor. You defend the standard transgender affirmative argument.
All right. Well, the first thing we need to establish is terms.
Yes, definitions.
So the most common establishment that any advocate for trans rights will point out that there is a difference between sex and gender. Mm-hmm. Sex is biological. It's what you're born with. It's what you are. Sex is what you were assigned at birth. Mm-hmm. So if a doctor, if you have a penis, you are a biological man. Your sex is male.
I happen to have one of those around here somewhere.
Somewhere, yes. I don't know if you know how it's used.
Right, but I happen to have one. I've used one several times.
I'm sure you have. And I'm sure it has used you many a times. In any event,
yes.
Then there is the gender of a person. Now, the gender is how one psychologically feels. It's how one psychologically exists. It's just what they are.
Feels about what? Their penis?
No, it feels about their masculinity. See, people have... Well, you see, because gender itself is a social construct, it's really whatever you feel it is. Mm-hmm. So if you feel as though to be a man, you need to be, or to be masculine, you need to be very strong, upfront, very forward, affirmative, aggressive.
Yeah, in control.
Then we at some point leach over into toxic masculinity, which is a whole nother subject, but I'm not going to get into that because that'd be off topic. And then there's feminine characteristics. Typically, most trans activists describe them as caring and nurturing,
loving,
things like that, and loving. So
kind, forgiving, tolerant.
Yes, because all
social.
Now, oh my goodness, my inner conservatism is leaking out. It's just coming out.
Let me do that for you, Aaron.
But those are...
I'll handle your leaks. Okay.
Those are just feelings that have been constructed by society, by authority figures. How we've been conditioned.
So, are you saying this happens without any relation to the actual configuration of the genitalia? That these feelings happen with no relationship to the genitalia, or I'm confused. How is this related to whether you have a vulva or a penis? I don't understand.
Well, you see, that's the thing, is they're not related. Sex and gender, they're not have no relation.
Okay, so if I have a penis, I could fantasize that I am of the gender donkey or the gender giraffe.
Yeah, sure. If that's how you feel, you have to be honest with your feelings. Of course, you have to feel honestly.
So if I'm a little boy child and I start playing with giraffe dolls and I identify with giraffe, then I say, "Mommy, I'm not a little boy. I'm a little baby giraffe."
If that's
what should mommy do?
Well, mommy should respect
Well,
their child's feelings
mhm.
because their feelings are a part of reality.
I see. Yes,
Their feelings are a part of reality,
of course. Yeah.
right? And um, yes,
Uh,
because they need to separate
so
sex from
should
gender.
mommy send me to a giraffe school or take me to Africa and release me into the Transvaal or the Serengeti plains, or what should mommy do now that I'm a giraffe?
Well, being that the mommy cannot understand her child's feelings. Notice I didn't say son; I said child.
Mhm.
Because she can never understand their feelings. She really has to do whatever her child tells her will make
Mhm.
uh, the child feel more as how
Okay,
his
okay,
gender
okay,
is.
okay. So let's further the analogy. So,
Okay.
little former boy who's now little giraffe, he looks in the mirror and he doesn't see blotchy skin like the patterns on a giraffe. So he
Okay.
says to mommy, "Mommy, I need a skin transplant. I have to have giraffe skin." So now the little giraffe creature, gender thing, goes to a hospital, and the doctors say, after consulting with the mommy, it really is in the best interest of the child's emotional feeling health that we take his real skin off and put on giraffe skin. Is that what you're
I think that there is a diversity of thought
saying?
in this particular area, whether you have to do whatever the child says or you do whatever the doctor says. Um,
The mommy said, or two mommies.
right,
The
exactly.
dad.
I think that there is a different opinion. I know some people that are full on members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersexual, queer, questioning, asexual, antisexual, polysexual, pansexual, and demisexual movement.
You're too schooled on that for my
Well,
temperament.
I told you.
I'm beginning to
Hey,
wonder about you.
look. Shut up. When I research
You.
a different point of view, I try to do my best to be as authentic as I can.
I think you are
Uh,
overcompensating for something here.
oh, am I now? Really? Well,
Yeah.
takes one to know one.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, touche, touche.
In any event, you
You
disgusting
rogue, you rogue.
demisexual, you.
Yes, you demisexual, you pansexual.
So I think in this particular um, faction, I could say, or there are multiple factions when it comes to answering that question. So
Yeah.
if I gave you an answer, I think that would be,
So I
there
got
is no predominant.
so I got a
Um,
question for
yeah,
you.
sure. Ask
Why
away.
why doesn't uh, why doesn't mommy take the child to a psychiatrist? If the mommy says, okay, little Marky, he thinks he's a giraffe and he wants to have a skin transplant so that he can become a full, authentic giraffe and live as a giraffe with other giraffes, then why doesn't mommy take little Marky to a shrink?
Well, it's because she's trying to impose her ideas on what is normal. Because remember, gender is a social construct. So her idea of gender has been so ingrained, she feels the need to suppress I'll just call him Timmy, little Timmy's um, feelings and his gender identification.
Mm.
So she is imposing her feelings of gender identification on by showing him to some Mike Pensian conversion therapy psycho doctor.
Mhm, mhm. So in other words, she's acting. She's well intentioned. You would say she's really well intentioned. Is
Well,
that what
no,
you're saying?
no. I mean, how can you say that? Because
Oh,
she is asserting and pushing her beliefs on gender on her child, whereas letting her child organically develop um, the child's own
mhm.
understanding of gender.
But
Because
she would allow the state to vaccinate her child.
what does that have to do with anything?
Think about it. Think
Well,
about it.
well,
She,
again,
she won't. She won't let the state impose two genders on her child, but she will allow the child to be vaccinated by the state.
that's because there's two. Again, we have to. Oh, you're such a male chauvinist. You have to separate biology with psychology.
Well, you
The
say I have
bio.
to do that, but I don't do that.
Oh, okay. Why?
You
Because
know,
you're a white
well,
male.
no, no,
You're
no, go ahead and defend the point of view.
well. I mean, uh, the reason why people go to doctors for things like vaccines or any other kind of medical treatment is to treat a biological symptom. But the reason why people go to a psychologist or a shrink is to treat a psychological abnormality. But here's the thing, is that me, as the trans activist that I now am for the next 15 or so minutes,
Actually, you only have 10, so speed it up. Go ahead.
okay, for the next 10 minutes,
Yeah.
is that what exactly are you trying to cure? You know, you're not trying to cure anything. You're trying to impose your beliefs on gender to this individual who is growing up.
Now you're arguing against the theory. So I thought you were going to defend the theory.
What are you talking about?
You just argued against the theory.
No, if a mother takes her child to a psychologist to tell him that his feelings are irrelevant and you are really an X or you are really a Y or you're an XX and a Y. XY, you're a this or a that, to tell him anything. To tell if he specifically denies whatever the child's feelings are and replaces it with something binary, binary normative sort of a belief system. Then that's simply the patriarchy instituting itself aggressively and mansplaining all over the poor little child.
So let me see if I get this straight. So if gender transfer or transgendering, trans means cross, gender means the femininity or masculinity or how one feels about their genitalia and the expectations socially prescribed for that genitalia configuration. So it's according to the theory you're defending, if I'm getting it right, there's an infinite number of genders that can be created.
That's correct. That's correct. Because but no, it's not fantasy. Because again, your feelings are part of reality.
But that's fantasy. That's fantasy.
Feelings are real, right?
No, fantasies are real. Fantasies are real. If I have a fantasy that I'm Napoleon, that's a real fantasy. Okay? I'm not Napoleon, but I have a fantasy that I'm Napoleon. Okay? So
do you believe that feelings are real? Feelings are real?
Yes, feelings are real and fantasies are real. And feelings are some of them are fantasies.
All right, you can finish your point. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that if this theory is correct, the one you're trying to defend, if it's correct, then there's no limit to the number of permutations.
Yes, there's an infinite amount. Gender is non-binary, as the saying is.
And so somehow society, social policy, has to be re-engineered in order for us to accommodate these fantasies or feelings. I'll accept that term there, actually. So since I don't want to use your dictionary, I'm going to use your dictionary. How would you? That's the first thing they teach you in debate school, is not to use the guy's dictionary. So how is this supposed to work out in social policy? That's what I don't understand.
Oh, in social policy, I mean.
So, for instance, let's say that I now think that I'm a dog, and in order to take a piss, I have to lift my leg and squirt my piss on a chair or on somebody's leg or something. Is this now? Society has to accommodate itself to me lifting my leg.
Well, absolutely. I mean, but at the same time, dogs. I mean, if you're really going to use the dog example, dogs need to be trained. I mean, dogs don't. They don't. If most pet owners don't have a pet that just walks in the middle of the party and just pees all over the place, and if they do have a dog like that, then then any responsible dog owner will discipline their dog. Oh. So I mean, hey, if you want to go around
but if we're talking about a human dog, a transgender dog, wouldn't we be violating that person's emotional feelings and fantasies if we tried to legislate that the dog should not lift its leg? It's now a gender dog. Well, so isn't that isn't that a discrimination?
No,
Isn't that
I
oppression?
would say we should discipline anyone that does public urination and we discipline dogs that do public urination anyway. I mean, you
Not
just
in my
can't.
neighborhood. Not in my neighborhood. There's shit, this everywhere. I mean,
Well,
these assholes don't even. I mean, they're just horrible.
well, you know what? Maybe they need
Yeah,
more
yeah,
trans activists, okay? Maybe
yeah,
your neighborhood needs more trans activists.
I know.
How
I
much
know.
more time do we have on the clock?
Actually, 5 minutes. We get 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, ask one more question, then I want to debunk myself.
uh, okay. So the ultimate question that I have for you is that uh, if the configuration of your genitalia does not tell you what gender you are, and if second premise, and if your feelings, i.e., your fantasies about an imagined gender, take with you, then how can if a person doesn't know who they are, how can they ever know what they want, and how can they ever be happy? And does this account for the extraordinarily large number of suicides in the transgender population?
Oh, well, the reason why there's a large amount of suicides is because people are just not accommodating. Okay? I mean, people are just not caring for people. They're
That's
enduring
stupid.
incredible amounts of
That's stupid.
abuse. And but
According to that logic, then poor people should have a disproportionate amount of suicides to rich people. But it's really the other way around.
well, the thing about trans folk is they just are more abused than the poor.
They're
And
more.
you can imagine a poor, someone who is a financially broke trans person is, extremely. We call this intersectionality, a whole other thing that we can talk about. But I would say in America right now, the most abused minority and the most at-risk minority would be illegal immigrants and trans people.
Okay,
Yes.
so a follow-up question. I know it's going to be my last question, but I got 3 minutes, so I'm gonna toss another one at you here. When did all this start? When I was your age, no one mentioned transgender. There weren't any transgender people. I never saw one. No one claimed that they were. There was no articles written about it. If you do the Google on it, you notice that there's no literature on it, and there are no cases, no documented cases. There are only psychiatric cases of people who present themselves to a psychiatrist and say, I'm just confused. I don't know if I'm a man or a woman. Fine. Here's some medicine. Here are some injections. You're going to be miserable all of your life because you're congenital psychotic. So how did it happen? Is it because we're now expanded so many
Well, I mean,
fake
the
knowledge?
reason, no. The reason is because I mean, this is actually how I was going to debunk myself. Is right in the first thing I said is I separated between biology and
Mm,
feelings. It's because part of our very understanding of how things
mm,
are true and not true facts,
mhm, mhm.
we actually make feelings a part of that. Our very epistemology, that's what the word means. Epistemology means our theory of knowledge is nowadays based more on feelings
Dark theory of
than
feelings. Dark
than
theory of
than
feelings.
than something like
Well, it's
science, which
psychology,
is
though. That's psychology. That's all psychology.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, that's why we're separating between biology and psychology. You see, gender is now. I mean, they used to be the same thing, but now they've split the two terms. Sex is all things biological, and gender is all things psychological.
Mm-hmm.
And because we have now shooed away things like empirical science and things like that, we've kind of shooed that away over feelings instead of observations, instead of
Mm-hmm.
under the premise of steadfast eternal principles. We now are embracing relativism. And what is more relative than our personal feelings? See, this is how I debunk the ideology or
Mm-hmm.
the philosophy behind the trans ideology
Mm-hmm.
is that it's all based in feelings, and feelings change. Feelings are not something that you can dictate another person
Mm-hmm.
adhere to. So your feelings are going to be changing constantly. My feelings are going to be changing constantly. And when it comes down to the wire, whose feelings at what moment is more important than the others?
Mm-hmm.
And from my understanding, making those sort of judgment calls is not something that we not only are qualified to do, but also something we are completely incapable of doing. And so that's why I embrace things like logic and reasoning and values such as dignity of human life and preserving the human life. That's why I value those sort of things, because
reality doesn't
always agree with them.
Reality does not care about our feelings. Reality doesn't care.
See,
even though our feelings are real, reality doesn't care about our feelings. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Both statements are true. Our feelings are real. I can feel like I'm a giraffe or a dog being that lives.
Or you can feel like you're a woman or a 6-year-old girl or whatever.
An 80-year-old woman. But even though it's true that I feel that way, that is a true thing. Nevertheless, reality doesn't correspond to that. It's not the case. In point of fact, I am not an 80-year-old woman. I am not a dog thing that lifts its leg to piss. Okay? So
biologically, yes.
Yeah.
Biologically, yes.
Right. So in other words, are you saying that these transgenders are doomed to a life of misery?
Unfortunately, statistically, that is the case. I mean, they have a suicide rate and you know how I said that they are right now abused and no one's conforming to their because the reason why they're at such a high suicide rate is because they're not accepted by society. That's just not true. This time right now in the US and Europe is the most accepting time for people who are trans.
Sure. Yeah.
But they are in the same suicide rate as Jews living in the ghetto. Now, are you really going to make the case that sure, I'm willing to say that they're bullied at school, that they get lots of cyberbullying. Maybe some crazy nut job is telling them to kill themselves and, whatever, fine. But there's no way you could argue that they are going at the same suicide rate as Jews living in German ghettos during the time of the Holocaust.
So we have arrived at a state where transgender people who claim to be or think that they are transgender, instead of trying to help them adjust to reality, we're trying to change reality to adjust to them.
And unfortunately, they literally are dying because of this very, very stupid choice.
Yeah, I was reading an article about a man who lived for 8 years as a woman, and he had the people I really still feel sorry for are these kinds of people. This guy who then decided that it was all a hoax, and that other people had convinced him that he was transgender, and actually living as the opposite sex was not who he was. It wasn't correct. Yeah. And then he had to have another operation to restore himself as nearly as possible. I mean, once a car is broken and it's fixed by the mechanic, I'm sorry, it never runs quite the same way.
Right.
And I had a Porsche like that once, but
see, I mean, that's the ultimate tragedy, is that people who in any way disagree with the transgender ideology are branded as transphobic. I'm not scared of trans people.
Oh, no, phobia means fear. Because you don't agree with something doesn't mean you're afraid of it. Okay?
No, if anything,
we should talk about phobias. We should do a whole podcast on. There's about 3,000 phobias that the left slinging around.
I know. I mean, if anything, I'm sympathetic. My heart goes out to those people because because they have abandoned reason and observations for feelings, which will ensure your misery. It will ensure your misery. So I think we're out of time. Tell me, folks, if you like this sort of podcast. Love to do more.
I like this one.
Well, you like beating me up, or
No.
How did I do, guys?
I like it when you talk about you're a woman. I like that.
Please, folks, share this with all your pro trans rights friends and all those people.
Subscribe, please hit the subscribe button. It helps us get a bigger audience so we can continue to do this. And we want to thank you for doing all.
And make sure to send it off to them and ask them what they think. How did I do? Was I fair? And if not, we'll do another one and it'll be even better.
Well, Alex, congratulations. Continue with your great job in DC cleaning out the swamp. And all I got to say is, toodaloo.
All right, folks, guys,
I
bye.
changed it. I changed it.
Yeah.